Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Is that work? Is that?
I think it's working.
That's working. Good.
Okay. Good afternoon. I would like to express my appreciation to Tom Lanterns and Human Rights Commission for inviting me to be here today. And I would also like to thank co-chair Mr. McGovern, Congresswoman Edwards, and also Congressman Smith. Your interest in Sudan and the issues that are affecting us is really appreciated, and hopefully God will help you guys and all of us who are worried about the next step that Sudan will take, and hopefully in years to come Sudan will be in peace. So thank you on that. My name is Elizabeth Anonkuch. I'm one of the few fortunate lost girls who survived and made it to U.S. in 2000. I was born in Jonglei State of Sudan. My father had 4 wives and had many children. My mother was his 3rd wife, and in total they had 7. One evening at age of 5, I was woken by the sound of gunshot and people screaming. I ran out of my room to see what was going on. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was fire and dead bodies everywhere. People were running in all directions. I called out for my mom, my father, but I couldn't find them. I saw one of my uncles laying on the ground and bleeding. I ran away as fast as I could. The next morning, other people who had escaped the attacks congregate under some trees. I walked through the crowd. Is it me or is it cutting off?
It's okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. I walked through the crowd, hoping I would find my mom. I knew if I found her, she would have some food, water, and place for me to sleep. I never found my mother or my father, but this dream has remained with me for the rest of my life. As days pass by, I still try. Sorry, I think I'm in the next one. Okay, as days passed by, I was still tired, hungry, thirsty, and confused. My feet hurt because we spent hours every day walking barefoot. I would go to sleep hoping that when I woke up, things would be back to normal, but when I woke up, everything was still the same. One day, I stepped my foot on a rock and injured my big toe. It was so painful, I couldn't walk. An older woman tried to carry me, but I was too heavy for her. She told me that I have to work because the enemies, which I later learned was the Sudanese government, was following us and would catch us if we delay. Days passed by, and I kept asking myself, why me? What did I do to deserve all this? The lady took good care of me, but this did not last long. One day, I woke up and found out that she had died. The following day, our group needed to keep moving, but I was still in pain from my wound. I couldn't keep up with the group. Later, men holding guns approached me. One of them offered to help me, but I was afraid. I thought they were enemies. They told me that they were members of Sudan People Liberation Movement, Army, the SPLM, and they were on our side. The SPLA helped to guide me and thousands of the other lost boys and girls from Sudan to Ethiopia. Many of children did not survive the journey. They died from natural causes, disease, hunger, and thirsty, attack from the enemy and wild animals. When we arrived at the refugee camp in Ethiopia, there was no food. I stayed with another lady who took care of me while I helped her with chores. I went to market to beg and pick garbage from the dumpster. I would bring food home for us to eat. As the weeks passed by, the situation improved. The United Nations Refugee Agencies, UNHCR, brought us food, clothing, and supplies. People started building shelters and schools. There were few doctors, offices, and hospitals. Even though things were better compared to walking barefoot from Sudan to Ethiopia, it was not home. I miss my mom and wish every day that I could see her. Although children could go to school in refugee camp, I did not know what a school was. In my village in southern Sudan, we did not have any school. In the camp, no one encouraged me to go to school, so I did not attend. 4 years later, a war between Ethiopia and Eritrea forced us to leave Ethiopia. We had to walk back to Sudan. The enemy struck again, and we fled to Kenya on foot. In 1992, we arrived at a refugee camp in Kenya. It was so dry and dusty. There was not enough food, and access to water was a problem. 3 times a day, camp officials would let water run from the tap for 2 hours. You had to wait in line to get water. If you were the last person in line, the water would be cut off before your turn. Food was being distributed in the camp, but we have no way to cook it. Women and young girls would have to find firewood, but in most cases, we would come back without any because we faced physical and verbal harassment from the local Kenyans. In refugee camp, women and girls has a lot of responsibilities: fetching water, firewood, cooking, and taking care of the household. Even though I was able to attend classes in refugee camp, it was hard to manage all my chores plus school. Some girls would just give up on school or were not given the opportunity to attend. Security in the camp was the biggest issue. We faced threat if we left the camp. People would be robbed or beaten. Locals would enter the camp during the night and kill people for no reason. We couldn't defend ourselves, and the camp official did not provide us protection. While I was in a refugee camp, I was introduced to someone who ended up being my stepbrother. I then met 2 other stepbrothers in the camp. When the refugee process started for resettlement to the United States, my stepbrothers applied and included me and my other 2 stepbrothers on the application. When I found out that we had been accepted to come to the United States, it was like a dream come true. However, I knew that leaving Africa meant that I may never know what happened to the rest of my family. We left for the United States on November 27, 2000. Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services placed me and my stepbrothers with the foster care program in Pennsylvania, ran by Lutheran Children and Family Services. Although I was anxious about how we would survive in a new country, staff from the program and our Sudanese caseworker, which is, by the way, the Minister of Agriculture right now in whatever state in Sudan, met us in the airport and helped us to get oriented to the life in the United States. It was until 2000 that I learned what had happened to my family. My father was killed in Sudan in the Civil War. 2 of my siblings did not survive either. However, my mother and my 4 siblings were alive and live in refugee camp in Uganda. I filed for them to come and join me in the United States. But after September 11, refugee resettlement to the United States was much more difficult due to high security concern. So they decided to be resettled in Australia. I kept in touch with them regularly, but I still have not had a chance to see them. I hope that one day my family and I will be able to visit them. Since arriving to the United States, I have been able to finish my high school education, and I'm currently taking classes for college degree. I have remained active on Sudan issues, and I'm grateful that as a woman living in the United States, I have the opportunity to involve in different ways to continue to help Sudan. The following are my recommendations for the U.S. government to help refugees. Provide NGOs greater access to refugees camp to enable them to help refugees advocate for improvement in the camp. Provide greater security to the refugees in refugees camp. Better oversee the delivery of aid destined for refugees camp to ensure that corrupt government, or individual do not steal materials, supplies, or forms of assistance. Expand assistance and services to refugees in camp, including food, water, medical care, and education. Increase ongoing training and employment opportunities for adults living in the camp. For example, men are accustomed to providing for their families, but living in the camp, we all became dependent on outside aid. Create special parenting and professional training classes for women in the camps. Provide more counseling to refugees. Refugees have experienced tremendous trauma and suffering and need special support assistance. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you have a better understanding on the challenges refugees face, particularly young girls, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for your testimony. Unfortunately, I have to leave, but I do want to say just one thing. I think what is clear from the testimony here today is that we're far from well prepared for what might be coming our way. And it's October, and we're talking about a referendum in January, and so that's one challenge. The other challenge is, how you control or influence the behavior of the governmental players in this, because that determines, to a large extent, how this will all unfold in terms of violence, in terms of refugees, internally displaced people, how you deal with, people who want to resettle back to the South, all those kinds of things. So I think the suggestions that have been made here today, I think, are really right on target. But I can't help but feel like really concerned that we're already, we're in October, coming into October, and so much is still up in the air, and so I am very, very, very worried. But your testimony has been very enlightening, and and it has given us some ideas of things that we need to pursue. But this is a very, I just can't help but be very concerned that that we may not be able to get all the assurances in place that we want to get in place. And again, I hate to see another tragedy unfold, and that has impacted these people on so many occasions. So I thank you very much. I'm going to yield now to my colleague from New Jersey, Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Again, thank you for this very timely and very sobering hearing. Let me just very briefly, Mr. Cochetel, you very wisely suggested that we be prepared for the worst and recommended the support for a more robust implementation of UNMISS's protection and civilian mandate, including north-south corridors in the event of voluntary or forced return. And you also indicated that there's discussion that's underway regarding safe havens. Yet, Mr. Galbadan, you testified that, in your opinion, UNMISS is not well equipped and won't intervene in the case of a clash, to use your words. So my question would be, is UNMISS up to the task? What are the rules of engagement for the UN force in southern Sudan, And when there's talk of safe havens, the lessons of the failings of UNPROFOR in Bosnia, especially in Srebrenica, and I've been to Srebrenica many times, and was actually there 2 years ago for a massive reinternment of people who had been slaughtered by the Bosnian Serbs. And of course that was done all under the watchful eye of UNPROFOR and the Dutch peacekeepers, who literally turned over those Muslim men to Mladic. So my question is, have those lessons been sufficiently learned? I mean, safe havens are great concepts, but if they become mustering areas for a killing field, I would be extremely, extremely worried. And I know you're raising these questions, and this whole panel deeply appreciates that, but I wonder if others, particularly on the security side, are sufficiently factoring in these questions. And finally, Mr. Cochetel, you mentioned that 2 million IDPs are at risk of statelessness, and it seems to me that the risk of that kind of disenfranchisement very easily could exacerbate the violent side and create such a chaos